Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take a stack of sources, research, and notes, and really try to distill them into the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight for you.
That's right.
Today, you're joining us for an immersive look into a truly, well, extraordinary life. The Reflections of Randy Fox. He's a figure, deeply embedded in the history of American pit bull terriers, often called APBTs, and the challenging, sometimes controversial world of game dogs.
Right. A term used for dogs historically bred and trained for pit fighting.
Exactly. And our sources for this deep dive are pretty rich. It's a collection of Randy Fox's own personal insights, his really vivid anecdotes, and his distinct philosophies.
Yeah, it's not just a standard biography.
No, not at all. It's more like a direct, unfiltered window into a life lived by a very unique code, filled with, honestly, surprising honesty and a perspective you probably won't find anywhere else.
And our mission here really is to explore Randy Fox's own presentation of his life. Extensively, comprehensively. We want this to be, especially for anyone fascinated by the history of APBTs and game dogs, a chance to gain a truly didactic but also entertaining understanding.
Yeah, didactic and entertaining. That's key.
Because it's a life that definitely challenges a lot of assumptions. It delves into themes like loyalty, integrity, resilience, offering this rare, candid look from the inside.
From his own perspective.
Exactly. We'll meticulously pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights, helping you see this, well, complex world through his eyes, using his own words. The goal is for you to feel not just informed, but genuinely enlightened.
Okay, so let's dive right in right at the top, because Randy Fox kicks off his reflections by laying down this core philosophy, one that immediately sets him apart from, a lot of the digital noise today.
Right.
He states it pretty bluntly. I did my talking in the pit years ago.
That's a powerful statement.
It really is, and it stands in stark contrast to what he calls the modern thing of online game dog chats, which, well, he clearly doesn't think much of.
No respect there, seemingly.
None. He doesn't mince words. He talks about this group he calls self-appointed dogmen who get on different game dog chats and run you down and run your dogs down.
Criticism and tearing people down.
Yeah, and he claims they make up stories about you, and, maybe the sharpest point, they get a kick out of hurting people's feeling.
Wow.
What's really striking is his honesty about it happening to him, too. He says flat out, they do me the same way.
So he's experienced it directly.
Directly. It's not just him looking down on it. He's on the receiving end of this online stuff, even though he feels he's being sincere in sharing his view.
And it's insightful how he then pivots right from describing that negativity to offering advice, really powerful advice on how to handle it. It says a lot about him.
It does. What's the advice?
He tells the listener, don't let them get you. Just laugh to yourself about them.
Easier said than done sometimes, maybe.
Maybe, but the message is clear.
Yeah.
Keep your chin up and keep a smile on your face.
Huh.
It's about resilience, self-worth, and he firmly states, these men are not real dogmen. He connects it back to his core idea. Actions, reputation built through real challenges, that holds weight, not online attacks.
So words versus deeds, basically.
Exactly. It's a potent lesson, really, for anyone dealing with online criticism today. If you connect it bigger picture, it shows the challenge of reputation when putting your name out there with your web, as he puts it, opens you up to attacks from crazies. But here's the really telling contradiction he points out. Despite all that online negativity, he mentions getting letters of support daily.
Daily. Okay, that is interesting.
It really is. It suggests a much more nuanced public perception exists outside those sometimes toxic online bubbles. Real-world respect, genuine connections, they still matter to people.
So what does this setup mean for you, the listener, as we get into this? Randy Fox, right from the start, he kind of throws down a gauntlet.
Who's so?
He says, everyone seems to demonize people who fight dogs, yet some of these people are good people.
Okay, a direct challenge to perceptions.
Totally. He's laying his life out, sharing really personal stuff, not for judgment, he says, but for your consideration. He's basically asking you to decide if he is okay or a demon.
That's incredibly bold.
It is. Bold, candid, maybe even a bit vulnerable. An invitation to look past the controversy, the easy labels, and really see the individual, the life he lived. It sets a tone of deep self-reflection for everything that follows.
Okay, so we have his core philosophy, this distinction between the pit and webland. Where does this path begin? Let's get into those formative years.
Right, the origins. He talks about a really impactful childhood detail. His parents divorced when he was just 2.
That early disruption often shapes things.
Definitely. But the real pivotal moment, the kind of genesis story, happened when he was only 7. His dad, Vernon McCasland, took him on a rare visit.
Okay.
They went to Mountain View, Oklahoma, and Randy explicitly says, knowing its significance, that this area was the heart of dogfighting back in those days.
Wow, age 7, exposed directly.
Directly. Not just hearing about it, but being in the place known for it. It wasn't abstract. It was part of that community's life.
And the encounter itself, it sounds almost formative, legendary in his telling.
Absolutely. He and his dad visited relatives, Ernest and Nell Hayes, and living right behind them was a man Randy calls Jim William, the famous dog fighter and lawman.
Dog fighter and lawman, that's a juxtaposition.
Isn't it? It immediately challenges assumptions. And Randy remembers Jim Williams' place had brick dog houses.
Right.
Yeah, brick. A detail he says he'd never seen anywhere else. It suggests, a certain seriousness, a level of setup that might surprise people.
Dedication.
But the real core of it, the moment that seems to have imprinted on him, was seeing this specific black female dog in a pen.
Okay, tell me about her.
He describes her vividly. Yellow, piercing eyes. She didn't make a sound, no barking or growling. She just stared at me and I stared back.
A silent connection.
For what he remembers as maybe 10 minutes. Just frozen, staring at each other. It's this incredibly intense image, almost spiritual. And his attraction was immediate, profound. Not just her looks, but what he saw in her. He was drawn to the seriousness and the muscled look, and the unique yellow eyes. But crucially, he says he could see the dominance in her eyes and could tell she had no fears.
So it's the traits he recognized.
Yeah.
Strength, seriousness, fearlessness.
Exactly. It wasn't just a kid seeing a cool dog. It was like this deep, intuitive recognition of qualities that resonated with him, even at 7.
And the impact lasted.
Undeniably.
Yeah.
Right then, age 7, he declares, I'm going to get me one of those dogs when I get some money.
And he did.
And he reflects on achieving that later with real satisfaction. It tells you so much about how powerful those early experiences can be, how they can set you on a path for life.
So, building on that intense formative moment, Randy then shares details about his active involvement in the pit dog game itself.
Right. He pulls back the curtain, and it sounds like these early fights were almost part of the family and community scene.
Yeah, so?
They were held right at my folks' home. And get this detail. His mother made coffee and sold it at the dogfight.
Coffee at a dogfight?
That's it.
Unexpectedly domestic.
Isn't it? It really shows how integrated this world was into their daily lives, blurs the lines.
Right.
He remembers his very first fight clearly, Alvin against Avon Kephart in one of their barns.
Okay.
And the people there were significant figures in that world. Earl Tudor was there.
Earl Tudor. He describes him pretty definitively.
He does. The best dog fighter that ever lived and a big-time bootlegger. That's Randy's assessment. Don Maloney was also there. And about 50 people.
So not a secret back alley thing, more of a community event in that specific community.
Exactly. With established figures present, which adds a layer of, historical context to his account.
And he quantifies his career somewhat.
He does. He says he fought around 50 dogs. And importantly, that includes dogs he fought for them for other people.
Ah, so he was recognized enough for others to entrust their dogs to him.
Seems so. But what's really compelling, maybe surprising, is he describes himself as soft-hearted about fighting dogs he'd raised himself.
Soft-hearted. How did that play out?
Well, this emotional connection often led him to actually buy most of the dogs he fought, sort of creating a distance between his affection and the competition.
Interesting. A way to manage that internal conflict.
Yeah. But he also says when he did fight his own, he could bit my lip and went for it. He admits being nervous, but also determined.
So empathy, but also resolve.
Definitely. And his competitive side comes through when he talks about losses.
How many did he say he lost?
I lost 5 fights. And he adds, it is easier to remember who I lost to, that dwells some on my mind I do not like to lose.
You feel the sting of defeat there.
You really do. It shows that drive. But despite those few losses, he concludes he was very successful in the pit dog game.
Right. This mix of sensitivity and competitiveness paints a more complex picture.
Absolutely. And given the negative perceptions often surrounding this world, how the animals are kept is a big point of contention, right? It's huge.
So it's really important to note what he says about how he houses his dogs now. He's specific.
What does he say?
He says he currently has 8 dogs in large chain link pens. And he stresses none are on any chains. There are no chains in the ground on my property.
Okay, that's a significant detail. No chains, large pens.
Yeah, it's not just a throwaway line. It gives a crucial look into his current practices, his standards, and it directly pushes back against those common, often harsh images people might have.
It definitely challenges stereotypes about care.
It really does. It encourages you to look a bit deeper.
Okay, so we've looked at his direct involvement in the game, his perspective on it. But what about the person behind all that? The personal life, the family, the values?
Right, peeling back another layer, he paints a picture of a remarkably stable, traditional life, really anchored by his marriage.
How long has he been married?
He proudly states, married to the same woman for 53 years.
53 years, that's quite something. It is. He describes her as a very quiet woman who doesn't care for the dogs, and I like her that way.
An interesting dynamic, mutual respect for different interests.
It seems like it. He adds she doesn't cuss, smoke, or drink, and has never drank one beer in her life, highlighting her, specific virtues.
And family.
They built a family, 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren, 2 boys among them, and 1 great-granddaughter and 1 great-grandson.
Wow, a growing legacy there.
And he really emphasizes how close they are. All the kids and grandkids live nearby. He says, quite contentedly, we never fuss, and there's this clear sense of mutual love, connection. It's the bedrock of his life, it seems.
And what about his home life? Finances. You get a real sense of grounded reality there.
Yeah.
Woven with some significant struggles.
Yeah, tell us about that.
He describes his home as an older home on 2 1/2 acres. Finds it a little small, but it is easy to take care of and it is comfortable. Practicality over grandeur.
Right, no flashiness.
Financially, he states with quiet pride, I owe not 1 penny to anyone except at property tax time and income tax time and occasionally medical bills.
Financially independent.
Very. But he's also humble about it. I am not rich and don't have a lot of money. He even says, you might say I'm poor if you compare me to today's standards, living on Social Security and my state retirement.
So modest means fixed income. That's important context.
Absolutely. And then he shares these incredibly personal, difficult health battles he and his wife faced.
Yeah, the cancer diagnoses.
He had colon cancer in my late 50s. His wife had breast cancer in 2012, and then a double mastectomy just this year, according to the source.
That's incredibly tough.
Terribly tough. And while they're cancer-free now, he adds that poignant qualifier, but who knows? The uncertainty.
Right.
And these health crises had a huge financial impact. They became very poor after paying all the medical bills that insurance didn't cover.
So the safety net wasn't enough.
Apparently not. And this financial strain directly led him to cut back on the dogs due to feed prices and medical bills.
Wow. That's a real sacrifice, connecting his passion for dogs directly to his family's well-being.
Exactly. It shows that vulnerability, those hard choices that everyone faces, even someone from such a different world, it humanizes him.
And his work life, it sounds like he had a really strong work ethic.
Oh, definitely. That comes through loud and clear. He lists various jobs: Vance Air Force Base, Aero Commander, Aircraft Engine Service, managing apartment repairs for Roth and Associates, a diverse background. But his main career for 30 years was commercial plumbing contractor. He's retired from that now, gets state retirement.
30 years in plumbing, that's commitment.
And what he seems really proud of is his consistency. He states, I've never been one day without a job, and I have never drew unemployment.
Never unemployed.
Never. He calls himself one lucky man for that. And crucially, this sense of responsibility extends to his legal standing. This is a major point he makes.
What does he say about his record?
He emphasizes, I've never been arrested for any felonies. I had a clean record. And then adds, significantly, not very many pit bull dog fighters can say that.
That is a strong statement, especially given the common perceptions. What do you make of that clean record claim? How does it challenge things?
That's a great question. It really hits a core theme in his reflections. Personal accountability, living by his own code, regardless of what people think.
Right.
His clean record in a field often linked with illegality, it's not just a fact he mentions. It's a direct challenge to the stereotype.
So?
It suggests a man who, yeah, he engaged in a controversial activity, but he drew a line. He kept it separate from his broader civic life, his legal responsibilities.
Compartmentalization, maybe? Discipline?
Exactly. Discipline. It suggests character, adhering to legal boundaries day to day, even while part of this niche world. For you listening, it kind of forces a question. Do we jump to conclusions too quickly? Assume things based on one part of someone's life? Randy's emphasis on his record invites us to think about integrity showing up in unexpected places. That personal discipline matters, even when someone's life touches controversy. It also feels strategic. He knows this is a sticking point, so he tackles it head on.
Okay. And his personal habits, his beliefs, they seem to add more layers to this picture.
They really do. They show a man with clear self-imposed rules. He says, I don't do any drugs beside my blood pressure medicine. Clear stance there.
Right.
He quit smoking young at 32.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, hasn't had alcohol for several years because of stomach issues, even though he used to drink lots of beer. So self-management, health focus. What's also fascinating is his spiritual side. It seems deeply ingrained.
What does he say about faith?
He says, very sincerely it seems, I believe in God and pray all the time for help from him on a daily basis, praying for himself and others.
Okay.
But he's also self-aware about not being perfect. I sin sometimes, I get a little crazy, and I'm not perfect by a long shot, but I try. That humility feels authentic.
Yeah, it does.
He even wonders why God spared him after lots of crazy stuff when I was young. And he talks about his family's religious upbringing, specifically, never have used God's name in vain.
A very specific point.
Very. He taught them that 4-letter words sound bad, but using the 3-letter word, using God's name in vain, will get you in hell. That's a deeply held, literal belief shaping his morals. He talks about a kind of redemption, too. When I got into my 40s, I got back on track, and am leading a good, honorable life.
A turning point.
Seems so. And just to complete the picture of his life on his land, he mentions other animals, 8 painted desert sheep, 2 outside dogs that are top watchdogs, and they will bite. Practical. Rugged.
Right.
And it's not some idyllic country scene either. He mentions copperheads and rattlesnakes all over my acreage and poison ivy all around.
So living close to nature, challenges and all.
Exactly. A life of vigilance, self-reliance.
So given this life, this background, you'd wonder about run-ins with the law, right? Especially related to the dogs.
You would.
But surprisingly, his story is quite different. He says his only time in jail was when I was a boy.
Only once. And not dog-related.
Not dog-related at all. It was for drag racing on an interstate highway. Just youthful recklessness.
Okay.
And his reaction, the lesson he learned, is revealing. He told everyone in the jail cell with this defiant kid attitude, do not introduce yourself. I will be out of here as quick as my parents get here.
Huh. Bit of bravado.
Totally. And he adds, satisfied, I did not ever get busted again after that.
So a lesson learned. Quickly.
Yeah, it speaks to this ability to self-correct, learn from a mistake early, and make sure it didn't happen again. A practical approach to staying out of trouble.
Okay, connecting that to the bigger picture, especially with the legal shadows around his past activities.
Yeah.
Why does he still keep a few game-bred dogs today?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And his answer is really personal. It moves way past the fighting aspect.
What does he say?
He says, simply, I have them so long it would miss them and need them to talk to.
Need them to talk to.
Yeah. It's this rare, powerful glimpse into the emotional bond. It reframes them completely, not as tools, but as companions, confidants, essential for his well-being.
That basic human need for connection.
Exactly, for an unburdened relationship. It shows the deep psychological, emotional support they provide, especially now, later in his life. It really changes how you might understand his motivation. It's a bond beyond the controversy.
And this leads into another fascinating part of his reflections where he tackles legal perceptions head-on, especially around DNA evidence and these dogs.
Right, this is a critical section.
He knows that some people are afraid of having registered dogs with the paperwork on hand, fearing it links them to illegal stuff.
Understandable fear, perhaps.
Maybe, but he uses the Michael Vick case, a huge public case, as an example to push back.
How does he use Vic?
He points out that of all the dogs seized from Vic, dogs absolutely bred for fighting, only one was not adoptable.
Only one. That's a striking statistic.
It is, and his core argument is blunt. Just because you have offsprings of fighting dogs does not mean they're going to be good fighting dogs.
Nature versus nurture, essentially. Or genetics isn't destiny.
Pretty much. And he uses this great analogy. It is like putting all of Sugar Ray Leonard's children down because they might become boxers if boxing was a felony.
That's a very clever, relatable analogy.
It really lands. It highlights what he sees as unfair, illogical generalization by the legal system. Potential doesn't equal certainty.
And this point is so crucial because it directly challenges how law enforcement might be approaching these cases, right?
Mhm.
The whole idea of genetic inheritance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the science bit he brings up.
He talks about a specific kind of test, a specific breed DNA test. Think more detail than just saying pitbull. It breaks down the ancestral breed percentages.
Okay, more granular.
Much more. They did this on 5 littermates from known fighting lines. And the results? None of the 5 came out with the same amount of terrier or bulldog or off-breed blood.
All different, even though they're siblings from the same parent.
All different in their specific genetic inheritance. So his point is, even if a standard DNA test shows fighting lineage they came out of a male dog or female dog that was fought, it doesn't mean they all got the same genetic cocktail or that they'll be fighters.
Right. The potential varies wildly even within a litter.
Precisely. His conclusion is aimed right at law enforcement. So a regular DNA test proves nothing without the Pacific breed DNA test done also. And it has very seldom came out like either parent's Pacific breed DNA.
He's basically saying the standard DNA databases might be flawed.
That's exactly his argument. He says, I hope law enforcement reads this and understands what I'm saying. He's heard they have these databases linking confiscated dogs to fighting lines, thinking that's proof enough to arrest owners.
And he disagrees strongly.
Very strongly. I sure could give some opposing testimony to that theory. It's a powerful science-informed challenge to a legal practice he sees as deeply flawed based on an oversimplification of genetics.
A call for more nuance, more scientific rigor.
Absolutely.
So when you look at everything, his past, his present, what does he want his ultimate legacy to be?
This part is surprisingly tender, I guess. Very human, especially given the rough edges of his story.
What does he say?
He states it very clearly. I want to go down in history as a great father, a wonderful grandfather, and a wonderful great-grandfather, not a famous dog fighter.
Wow. A complete shift in focus.
Completely. It's a deliberate reprioritization of what truly matters to him now. And he underlines it with that Bible verse from 1 Corinthians.
The one about putting away childish things.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me.
That's not just a random quote. That feels deeply intentional.
It really does. It's about personal evolution, a journey from those youthful pursuits, maybe including the dog fighting, to this deep commitment to family, to a different path. His identity isn't primarily the game anymore.
And this focus on family, it seems tied to a real sense of gratitude, maybe even humility.
Definitely. He highlights his family's good character, noting with clear pride, none have ever been on drugs or none have ever been arrested.
That's a big deal for him.
A huge deal. A testament to the values he passed on, the environment. He feels profoundly blessed with the best loving and wonderful family, but then adds, acknowledging his own past, crazy as I have been, I do not deserve this happiness, but I have it.
That's quite a statement, feeling undeserving but grateful.
It adds this layer of raw honesty, like he feels he got more than he earned, a sense of grace. And he wraps up this part with a really stark warning, a kind of haunting conclusion to his active game days.
That's a warning.
Do not fight dogs unless you want to leave your family for a while.
Wow. That hits hard.
It does. It's not just about jail time, though that's part of it. It's the personal cost, the separation, the disruption to the family life he now cherishes so much. It's a powerful deterrent, straight from his own lived experience.
Let's shift focus slightly for a moment to his hometown, Gotebo, Oklahoma. It seems to hold this really deep, almost sad significance for him.
Yeah, it's like a symbol of loss, of time passing.
He lived on a farm near there, and his description of its decline is just heartbreaking. He calls it basically a ghost town.
What's gone?
The list is long. Grocery stores, the bank, car repair garages, service stations, the movie theater, hardware, drugstore, liquor store, cotton gin, grain elevator, feed store, restaurants, the tavern pool hall, all the schools, all closed.
The entire infrastructure of a community just vanished.
Pretty much. And you feel his sadness. It is sad for me to come there any longer. I get a tear in my eyes just looking. It's not just facts, it's emotion. He gets nostalgic, remembering Saturday nights full of people in cars, the full theater, seeing my friends, girlfriends, and classmates in my mind's eyes. Then the stark reality. Some are already dead now in 2013.
That sense of a lost world.
Yeah.
And does he identify why it declined?
He does. He points to the classic forces that hit so many rural towns.
Like what?
Oil is what started this town and farming. But then, as the shallow oil wells played out and the small farms got bought out by corporate-type farmers, the town died.
Economic shifts, agricultural consolidation.
Exactly. And the result? The children all left for towns with jobs like I did. The familiar story of rural exodus.
Does he mention who lives there now?
Yeah, he touches on the demographics. A lot of the original immigrants were Russian-born German people seeking freedom.
Yeah.
Other groups, too, including Indians. About 200 people left, he estimates.
A remnant community.
And his brother, Larry, still lives in their old home, so there's still a small family tie, even as the town fades. It's a really poignant picture of broader changes playing out in one small place.
And the town's name itself, Gotebo, has a history that connects back, doesn't it?
It does, adding another really compelling layer. Gotebo, Oklahoma was named after a Kiowa subchief, Cowtow, also known as Gotebo.
Tell me about him.
Born around 1847, died 1927, buried nearby. Randy details his history. Rode on many raids with the Kiowa back in the day. Embodied that plains warrior spirit.
But later, he played a key role as a scout in 1875, helping persuade Lone Wolf to come to the reservation. He rode with guys like Big Bo.
So involved in that difficult transition period.
Exactly. And his later life reflects that too. He was one of the first Kiowa baptized at the Rainy Mountain Church in the 1880s, embracing new ways.
Interesting. What was his character like?
Randy describes him as incredibly kind. He uses this striking contrast. He was as kind as Big Tree was mean, known for many kind deeds. He even accepted the white man's spelling and pronunciation, changing his name to Gotebo, like the town.
Wow. And Randy connects this back personally.
Yeah, and this really neat convergence. He remembers passing Earl Tudor's house, the famous dogfighter, every Sunday on his way to the brick church pictured below in his notes, the church associated with Gotebo's history, which later became abandoned.
So his personal life, the controversial figure, the town's namesake history, the family's faith journey, all intersecting in that memory, in that landscape.
Exactly. It's a remarkable tying together of threads. Okay, let's shift gears now. Randy shares this fantastic anecdote. It gives a completely different glimpse of him, his wit, his directness.
Oh yeah, the electrician story. It's great. Tell it.
Okay, so he's working commercial plumbing years ago, sharing a break room with guys from different trades. One day, this electrician, maybe 40, starts bragging loudly about his wife.
Bragging how?
Saying her body was perfect. Totally blemish-free, no stretch marks, no cellulite, nothing. Just perfect.
Okay. Setting himself up there.
Totally. And Randy, apparently not one for idle boasts, just cuts in with one word. Bull.
Just like that. Direct.
Totally direct. The electrician, probably taken aback, asks how much Randy wants to bet. Randy says, you name it. Electrician says $20. They shake on it.
Okay, the bet is on.
Then Randy, with what I imagine is a perfectly straight face, lays down his terms to verify the claim.
What does he demand?
He says, go get her and bring her in here and lay her on one of the empty tables. Get her clothes off of her and let me examine her.
No way. He actually said that.
That's the story he tells, clearly designed to show the absurdity of the boast.
And the electrician's reaction?
Priceless. He just got up and took his lunch and left. Realized immediately he'd made a stupid bet. Knew he couldn't possibly meet that demand.
Called his bluff completely.
Completely. And Randy connects it to that comedian's line. Here's your sign.
Perfect.
It's lighthearted, yeah, but it shows you his quick wit, that blunt directness, his ability to just cut through nonsense. A bit mischievous, maybe, but sharp. He calls out foolishness head on.
Definitely shows another side to him. Now, we come to a really profound passage Randy includes. It's about loyalty, the human-animal bond. It feels incredibly significant.
It really does. He introduces it as this powerful statement on loyalty itself, and you can't help but feel it explains so much about his own connection to his dogs.
How does it start? What's the contrast it draws?
It starts by looking at human relationships, how fragile they can be, how friends, even your own children you've reared with loving care, might prove ungrateful.
Ouch. A pessimistic view.
A bit, yeah. It says those nearest and dearest, those we trust with our happiness and our good name, may become traitors. Wealth can vanish. Reputation can be sacrificed in a moment.
Highlighting impermanence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this rather bitter observation. The same people who honor you in success may be the first to throw the stone of malice when failure settles its cloud upon our heads. It paints a picture of potential human betrayal, fickleness.
Okay, so that sets the stage. How does the dog compare in this passage?
In beautiful, stark contrast, the passage calls the dog the one absolutely unselfish friend that man can have in the selfish world, the one that never deserts him, never proves ungrateful or treacherous.
Unconditional loyalty, completely. It describes the dog sticking by you through everything, in prosperity and in poverty, in health and in sickness. It paints this picture of the dog sleeping on the cold ground in wintry winds just to be near his master.
Yeah.
How the dog will kiss the hand that has no food to offer, lick the wounds and sores from life's hardships. The dog as protector, guarding the pauper master as if he were a prince.
Such powerful imagery.
It really is, and it summarizes it. When all other friends desert, he remains. When riches take wings and reputation falls to pieces, he is as constant in his love as the sun in its journey through the heavens.
That's beautiful. And it goes even further, doesn't it? Loyalty beyond life itself.
It does. It talks about the dog going with an outcast master, friendless and homeless, asking only to accompany him, guard him, fight for him. Absolute devotion. And the final scene is incredibly poignant when the last scene of all comes and death takes his master. No matter if all other friends pursue their way, there by the graveside will the noble dog be found, his head between his paws, his eyes sad, but open in alert watchfulness, faithful and true even in death.
Faithful and true even in death. Just wow.
It's more than just sentimentality, isn't it? It feels like this deep philosophical grasp of what canine loyalty represents.
Absolutely. And you connect that back to Randy Fox, his life, his statement about needing his dogs to talk to. It gives you such a profound insight. This understanding of pure, unwavering companionship seems foundational to his whole world, explaining that bond despite everything else.
Okay, so we've really taken a deep dive here, a comprehensive exploration into Randy Fox's reflections. A man, truly, of surprising contradictions, unwavering principles.
Definitely not simple.
No! From his strict code in the game dog world, his dismissal of online critics, to that childhood encounter that set his path. It's complex.
Well,
We saw his active, successful role in the game, but also that unexpected soft-heartedness, his commitment to humane housing now.
challenging stereotypes there.
Yeah. And beyond the dogs, the long marriage, the cancer battles, the financial prudence, that clean legal record, all things that really push against preconceived notions.
Right.
His desire for a legacy centered on family, not fighting, that speaks volumes about his evolution. The sadness for Gotebo, connecting him to that larger American story. Even the wit in the electrician anecdote.
And that profound appreciation for dog loyalty.
Exactly. It paints this complete, deeply human picture. His story gives us this unique, unfiltered look at a life lived absolutely on its own terms, often against the grain.
And his reflections, they powerfully remind us that perspectives are rarely simple, right?
Yeah.
Character gets forged in unexpected, sometimes controversial places.
True.
His life, the successes, the challenges, the choices, the convictions, it really forces us to look past easy labels, to consider the nuances of loyalty, integrity, personal history, his directness facing criticism, his resilience through hardship, his practicality, that deep bond with his animals. These offer insights beyond just his specific world, his focus on personal accountability, wanting a legacy defined by family. Those are resonant lessons about human experience.
Yeah.
He really makes you confront your own biases, look for the truth under the surface.
So as you, our listener, reflect on Randy Fox's extraordinary journey, maybe consider this. In a world that's so quick to judge, to slap simple labels on complex people, what hidden codes of honor, what unwavering loyalties might exist in the most unexpected corners of society? And what can we learn, really learn, from those who live by those codes, often quietly, regardless of public perception or what's popular?